Dr. Lisa Adams stared at the computer screen in her small lab aboard the USS Horizon. The numbers made no sense. She had run the test 5 times already, and each time the results came back the same. The alien tissue sample contained DNA sequences that matched human genetic code perfectly. This has to be contamination, she whispered to herself, pushing her dark hair away from her tired eyes. She had been working for 12 hours straight since the Zephyrian delegates had arrived on their ship. The tall, blue-skinned aliens were the first intelligent species humans had ever encountered, and Lisa was the lead scientist studying their biology. The Zephyrians claimed their civilization was over 50,000 years old. They had cities that floated in the clouds of gas giant planets, and technology that could bend space itself. Compared to them, humans were like children who had just learned to walk. Yet here was proof that these ancient aliens shared the same basic genetic building blocks as humanity. Lisa walked across the lab to check her equipment. Maybe the DNA sequencer was broken. Maybe there had been a mistake when she prepared the samples. She had to be sure before she told anyone about this discovery. If she was wrong, her career would be over. If she was right, everything humanity thought they knew about life in the universe would change. The lab door opened with a soft hiss. Captain Jake Morrison stepped inside, his uniform crisp despite the long day. He was a good commander, fair but strict, and he always made time to check on his crew. "How are the tests going, Doctor?" Jake asked, looking at the screens filled with complex genetic data. "Sir, I need to run more tests before I can give you a proper report," Lisa said carefully. She did not want to share her findings until she was absolutely certain. Jake nodded. "The Zephyrians are asking about our progress. Their High Scholar Vextar seems very interested in our research methods. He keeps asking specific questions about human DNA analysis." Lisa felt a chill run down her spine. "What kind of questions?" "Technical stuff I don't understand. Something about genetic markers and base pair sequences." "Does that mean anything to you?" Before Lisa could answer, her computer beeped with the results of another test. She turned to look at the screen, and her heart nearly stopped. The new samples showed the same impossible results. Human DNA sequences embedded in alien tissue, as if they belonged there naturally. "Captain," Lisa said slowly, "I think you need to see this." Jake walked over to stand behind her chair. Lisa pulled up the genetic comparison charts on her main screen. 2 DNA helixes appeared side by side. One labeled human sample, control group, and the other Zephyrian sample, tissue culture 7. "These are genetic codes," Lisa explained, pointing at the screen. "The one on the left is from our database of human DNA. The one on the right is from the Zephyrian tissue sample I collected yesterday." Jake studied the images, even without scientific training. He could see they looked very similar. "Are you saying they're related to us somehow?" "I'm saying they're identical in key areas," Lisa said. "Not just similar, identical. These specific sequences control basic cellular functions that are exactly the same in both species." The captain was quiet for a long moment. Lisa could see him thinking through the implications. First contact with alien life was already the most important event in human history. But this discovery could mean something much bigger. "Could this be some kind of mistake?" Jake asked. "I've run the test 6 times now, sir. I've checked my equipment, changed samples, even used different testing methods. The results are always the same." Jake rubbed his jaw, a habit he had when facing difficult decisions. "Doctor, I want you to expand your testing. Check samples from all the Zephyrian delegates if they'll allow it, and I want you to cross-reference with any other alien genetic data we have in our files." "Sir, we only have tissue samples from the Nexari crystals we collected last year, and some atmospheric microbes from the Etherian gas clouds. That's not much to work with. Test everything we have," Jake ordered. "And Doctor, this information stays classified until we know what we're dealing with. No reports to Earth Command, no discussions with other crew members." "Understood," Lisa nodded. She understood the need for secrecy, but part of her wanted to shout this discovery from the ship's communication array. If humans and Zephyrians shared genetic code, what did that mean about the origin of life in the galaxy? After the captain left, Lisa returned to her work with new energy. She prepared samples from their limited collection of alien biological materials. The Nexari sample was tricky to work with since their species was based on living crystal rather than organic tissue. The Etherian microbes were so small she could barely isolate enough genetic material for testing. Hours passed as Lisa worked. Through the night shift, the ship was quiet except for the low hum of the engines and the distant sounds of the night crew making their rounds. Most of the Zephyrian delegates were resting in the guest quarters, but Lisa knew some of them never seemed to sleep as dawn approached according to the ship's artificial day cycle. Lisa's computer finished processing the expanded tests. She held her breath as the results appeared on her screen one by one. The next Sari crystal sample contained the same human genetic markers. The Etherian microbes showed identical base pair sequences, even traced biological material from the machine-integrated synthery species they had encountered briefly contained the impossible human DNA code. Lisa sat back in her chair, her mind reeling. For different alien species, from for different star systems, all carrying genetic information that matched human DNA perfectly, this was not contamination. This was not coincidence. This was something much bigger than anyone had imagined. She reached for her communication device to call Captain Morrison, then stopped. Once she made this report, there would be no going back. The universe was about to become a much stranger and more mysterious place. Dr. Kevin Blake arrived at Lisa's lab early the next morning with 2 cups of coffee and a puzzled expression as the ship's chief geneticist. He had been called in to help verify the impossible results. Kevin was 10 years older than Lisa, with gray hair and steady hands that came from decades of precise laboratory work. "Show me everything," Kevin said, handing Lisa one of the cups. He had already read her preliminary report, but he needed to see the data himself. Lisa pulled up the genetic comparison charts on the main display screen. The DNA helixes from 4 different alien species glowed against the dark background, each one marked with highlighted sections that matched human genetic code. "The similarities aren't random," Lisa explained, pointing to specific areas on the screen. "Look at these sequences here, here, and here. They're not just similar to human DNA. They're identical down to the last base pair." Kevin studied the data carefully, his scientific mind working through the implications. These sequences control basic cellular repair functions, energy production, and neural development. They're some of the most fundamental parts of genetic code. "That's not the strangest part," Lisa said. She pulled up a new screen showing a 3-dimensional model of the genetic structures. "Watch this." The DNA sequences began to rotate and align themselves, forming a complex geometric pattern. Mathematical progressions became visible in the arrangement of the genetic markers, creating shapes that looked almost like a blueprint or schematic diagram. "This can't be natural evolution," Kevin said quietly. "These patterns are too precise, too organized. It looks like someone designed this." Lisa nodded. "I've run statistical analysis on the probability of these sequences appearing naturally and for separate species. The odds are so small that they might as well be impossible." Kevin sat down heavily in a nearby chair. As a scientist, he had always believed that life evolved randomly through natural selection and environmental pressure. But the evidence on the screen challenged everything he thought he knew about biology. "Have you told Captain Morrison about this yet?" Kevin asked. "Not yet. I wanted you to confirm my findings first." Before Kevin could respond, the lab's communication system activated. "Dr. Adams, please report to Conference Room 2. Bring all your research data." Lisa and Kevin exchanged worried looks. Conference Room 2 was where the captain held meetings with the Zephyrian delegates. If they were being called there, it meant the aliens wanted to discuss the genetic testing. 20 minutes later, Lisa sat at the oval conference table with her data tablets in front of her. Captain Morrison was at the head of the table, with Dr. Kevin Blake beside Lisa for support. Across from them sat 3 Zephyrian delegates. High Scholar Vextar was the leader of the alien group. He was tall even by Zephyrian standards, with deep blue skin that seemed to shimmer in the room's lights. His large eyes were completely black, making it hard to read his expressions. The other 2 Zephyrians were younger scholars who rarely spoke during meetings. "Dr. Adams," Vextar began, his voice carrying a strange musical quality that all Zephyrians had. "We understand you have been studying our biological samples." "Yes, that's correct," Lisa replied carefully. "And what have you discovered?" Lisa looked at Captain Morrison, who gave her a small nod. "We found genetic similarities between humans and Zephyrians that are unexpected." One of the younger Zephyrians leaned forward with obvious interest, but Vextar silenced him with a gesture. "How similar?" Vextar asked. Lisa pulled up her data on the room's main screen, identical in several key genetic sequences. We've also found the same patterns in samples from other species we've encountered. The Zephyrians exchanged looks, and Lisa heard them speaking in their own language. Their conversation was too fast and quiet for the translation devices to pick up clearly. This does not surprise us, Vextar said finally. Our ancient texts speak of the great seeding, when the first ones spread the seeds of consciousness across the galaxy. Captain Morrison leaned forward. First ones? Are you talking about another alien species? We do not know if they were alien, Vextar replied. Our oldest records are incomplete, but they tell of a race that traveled between stars. Long before our civilization began, they left genetic gifts in many worlds. Lisa felt her heart racing. You're saying someone deliberately planted these genetic sequences in different species? That is what our ancestors believed, Vextar said, for thousands of years. We have searched for others who carry the genetic markers. We have found only a few, and they are scattered across great distances. Kevin spoke up for the first time. If this is true, then the genetic patterns we're seeing aren't random. There's some kind of code or message. Vextar's large black eyes focused on Kevin. You understand quickly, human scientist. Yes, we believe the patterns contain information, instructions, perhaps for some great purpose we do not yet comprehend. Captain Morrison looked troubled. Are you saying that our meeting wasn't accidental? That you came looking for us specifically? We detected unusual energy signatures from your ship when you entered this system, Vextar admitted. Signatures that matched readings we have found at other sites connected to the first ones. We had to investigate. Lisa's mind was racing with new questions. What kind of energy signatures? The genetic markers appear to generate quantum resonance effects. When multiple carriers are in close proximity, one of the younger Zephyrians explained, the effect becomes stronger with more species present, as if responding to the aliens' words. Lisa suddenly felt a strange tingling sensation in her head. She looked around the room and saw that Kevin was rubbing his temples, and Captain Morrison was blinking rapidly as if trying to clear his vision. What's happening? Jake asked. Vextar stood up slowly. The awakening begins. The proximity of our species is activating dormant genetic programming. This is what our text warned us to prepare for. Lisa tried to stand, but felt dizzy. The room seemed brighter somehow, and she could hear sounds that weren't there before. A low humming that seemed to come from inside her own head. Activate the neural dampening fields. Kevin said urgently to Captain Morrison, whatever's happening, we need to control it. But as the dampening fields came online, Lisa noticed that the effect was only getting stronger. The genetic code wasn't just similar between species. It was actively connecting them, creating some kind of biological network that spanned across different forms of life. High Scholar, Captain Morrison said, fighting to keep his voice steady. I think you need to tell us everything you know about these first ones. Our crew's safety may depend on it. Vextar nodded gravely. Captain Morrison, I believe your people and mine are about to discover why we were brought together. The genetic seeds left by the first ones are beginning to grow, and we are the first generation to see the harvest. As the meeting continued, strange reports began coming in from all over the ship. Crew members were experiencing enhanced sensory perception, and some were claiming they could understand alien languages they had never learned. The careful scientific study of genetic similarities was quickly becoming something much more immediate and mysterious. Lisa realized that they were no longer just studying the genetic code, they were living it. 3 days after the meeting with the Zephyrians, the USS Horizon had become a very different ship. Dr. Lisa Adams walked through the corridors and noticed changes everywhere. Crew members moved with more confidence, their eyes seemed brighter, and conversations happened in languages that shouldn't have been possible. Lieutenant Amy Foster, the communications officer, was the first to report the strange abilities. She had been working on translating Zephyrian technical manuals. When she realized she no longer needed the translation computer, the alien symbols made perfect sense to her, as if she had been reading them her whole life. It's not just understanding their language, Amy explained to Lisa in the medical bay. I can feel what they mean behind the words, like there's emotion and context that comes with each symbol. Dr. Kevin Blake was running medical scans on crew members who reported changes. The results were fascinating and frightening at the same time. Brain activity had increased by 30% across the board. Neural pathways that had been dormant were now active and creating new connections. The genetic activation is rewriting our nervous systems, Kevin told Lisa as they reviewed the latest test results. We're becoming something new, but I don't know what. Lisa nodded. distracted by her own experiences yesterday. She had touched a piece of Zephyrian technology and instantly understood how it worked. The knowledge had flowed into her mind like water, complete and perfect. She could now repair alien equipment that Earth's best engineers couldn't even identify. Captain Jake Morrison called an emergency meeting in the main briefing room. When Lisa arrived, she found not only the senior staff, but also the Zephyrian delegates and the new faces she didn't recognize. Everyone, I'd like you to meet Chief Engineer Ryan Cooper and Security Chief Tony Martinez, Jake announced. They've both experienced significant changes over the past few days. Ryan stepped forward. He was a quiet man who usually worked alone in the engine rooms, but now he seemed different, more alert and confident. I can interface directly with the ship's systems now, Ryan said simply, not just our human technology, but the alien equipment the Zephyrians brought aboard. I touch a control panel, and I know exactly what it does and how to improve it. Tony Martinez nodded. I've been having dreams about star maps and navigation routes I've never seen before. When I looked them up in our database, they match unexplored regions of space that no human has ever visited. High Scholar Vextar spoke up from his position at the table. The genetic templates are activating dormant knowledge that was planted in your species long ago. What you call dreams are actually inherited memories. Memories from who? Jake asked. From the first ones, Vextar replied. Our own people experienced similar awakenings when we first encountered other seeded species. The process is designed to prepare us for something greater. Lisa felt a strange pull in her mind, like a voice calling from far away. She looked around the room and saw that several other people seemed to be experiencing the same thing. There's something else, she said slowly. I keep getting images of a place I've never been. A structure in space, ancient and massive. I think it's trying to show us where to go. Amy Foster pulled out her data tablet and began sketching quickly. I've been seeing the same thing. It looks like this. She held up her drawing of an enormous space station surrounded by geometric patterns. Ryan Cooper looked at the sketch and nodded. That's exactly what I've been dreaming about, and I know how to get there. Captain Morrison stood up, his face serious. Are you all saying that these genetic changes are giving you directions to some kind of destination, not just directions? Tony Martinez said, purpose. I can feel it in my bones that we're supposed to go there, all of us, humans and aliens together. Vextar exchanged glances with his fellow Zephyrians. Captain Morrison, our ancient texts speak of a great convergence where representatives of all seeded species would be called to return to the source. We believe that time has come. The source of what? Jake demanded. The source of the genetic templates. The home of the first ones. Lisa felt the pull in her mind growing stronger. The images of the space station were becoming clearer and more detailed. She could see docking bays designed for ships from dozens of different civilizations. Carters built for beings of vastly different sizes and shapes. Captain, she said, urgently, I don't think we have a choice anymore. The genetic programming is compelling us to go there. Fighting it is like trying not to breathe. Communications specialist Dana Wells, who had been quietly working at a side console, suddenly looked up with excitement. Sir, I've been analyzing the data crystals the Zephyrians gave us. The ones with their historical records. What did you find? Jake asked. Star maps, sir. Lots of them, all pointing to the same region of space. They call it the Convergence Zone. Dana put the data on the main screen, showing a three-dimensional map of local space with a bright marker indicating their destination. It's about 6 days' travel from here at maximum warp, Ryan Cooper said, studying the map. And sir, I know this sounds crazy, but I think I can modify our engines to get us there faster. The knowledge just came to me. Jake looked around the room at his transformed crew. These were people he had known for years, but they were becoming something new. The question was whether they were evolving into something better or losing their humanity entirely. High Scholar Vextar, Jake said. Finally, what happens when we reach this convergence zone, we do not know for certain. The alien admitted. Our texts speak of a great revelation and the return of the first ones, but the exact nature of what we will find there remains a mystery, sir, Amy Foster said. We're not the only ones being called. I've been picking up similar energy signatures from ships across this sector. Other species are moving toward the same destination. Lisa felt a chill of anticipation mixed with fear. We're going to meet other seeded species there, aren't we? Maybe dozens of them. That is our belief, Vextar confirmed. The genetic awakening is happening simultaneously across the galaxy. We are all being drawn together for the first time. Since the original seeding, Captain Morrison made his decision. All right, people, we're setting course for the convergence zone, but we go unprepared for anything. Ryan, start working on those engine modifications. Amy, monitor all communications for signs of other ships heading in the same direction. Lisa and Kevin, keep studying the genetic changes in our crew. I want to understand what we're becoming before we get there. As the meeting broke up, Lisa lingered in the briefing room with a strange sense of destiny settling over her. The USS Horizon was no longer just an exploration vessel. They were pilgrims on a journey that had been planned millions of years ago, carrying genetic gifts from an ancient race toward a reunion that would reshape the galaxy. The awakening was just the beginning. The real test would come when they reached the source and discovered who the first ones really were, and what they wanted from their scattered children among the stars. The USS Horizon dropped out of warp at the edge of the convergence zone, and every person on the ship stopped what they were doing to stare at the main view screen. Captain Jake Morrison had seen many wonders during his years in space, but nothing had prepared him for this sight. The ancient structure floating before them was larger than any space station ever built. It stretched for hundreds of kilometers in every direction, its surface covered with geometric patterns that seemed to shift and glow in the starlight. Docking bays of dozens of different sizes and shapes dotted its hull, clearly designed for ships from many different civilizations. Captain, Communications Specialist Dana Wells called out from her station. I'm reading over 200 ships already docked at the station. The energy signatures match dozens of different species. Doctor, Lisa Adams stood on the bridge next to Captain Morrison, feeling the genetic pull stronger than ever. The ancient station was calling to her, to all of them, with a voice that spoke directly to their DNA. Sir, Chief Engineer Ryan Cooper reported, the station is scanning us, but it's not using any technology I recognize. It's reading our genetic patterns directly, as if responding to their presence. The massive structure began to change. Lights appeared along previously dark sections of the hull, and one of the smaller docking bays opened with mechanical precision. A beam of soft blue light extended from the bay toward their ship. They're inviting us in, Lieutenant Amy Foster said, her enhanced language abilities letting her understand the meaning behind the light patterns. Jake made the decision to dock. As the USS Horizon settled into the alien berth, the crew felt a strange sense of coming home. The station's atmosphere was breathable, and the artificial gravity matched Earth normal exactly. High Scholar Vextar and his Zephyrian companions joined the human landing party. As they stepped onto the station for the first time, the corridors were vast and beautiful, with walls that seemed to be made of living metal that responded to their presence. With gentle pulses of light, the architecture adapts to whoever is walking through it, Dr. Kevin Blake observed, watching as the ceiling height adjusted to accommodate both humans and the taller Zephyrians. As they walked deeper into the station, they began to encounter other species. Lisa saw beings made of crystalline structures that she recognized as advanced Nexari, floating entities that must have been Etherians in environment suits, and dozens of other alien forms she had never imagined. But the most surprising discovery came when they reached the central chamber of the station. Waiting for them, there was not another alien species, but something that looked almost human. The figure was tall and graceful, with features that seemed familiar yet somehow perfected. Its eyes held the wisdom of ages, and when it spoke, every species present understood the words perfectly. Welcome home, children of the galaxy. The figure said, I am the Keeper, the last conscious remnant of those you call the first ones. I have waited a very long time for this moment. Captain Morrison stepped forward. Are you saying that the first ones were human? The Keeper smiled sadly. Not exactly. We were what humanity became millions of years ago. When your species first achieved transcendence, we spread across the galaxy not as conquerors, but as gardeners, planting the seeds of consciousness in worlds that could support life. Lisa felt her world shifting as the implications hit her. You're saying humans are the original species? That we created all the other intelligent life in the galaxy? Your ancestors did. The Keeper confirmed. Before Earth, before the solar system, humans achieved a level of evolution that allowed them to exist beyond physical form. But they feared that pure consciousness might become isolated and lonely. So they created a great project. The chamber around them began to change, walls becoming transparent to show holographic images of ancient history. Lisa saw human ships, traveling between young worlds, carefully guiding the evolution of primitive life forms. Each species was given specific gifts. The Keeper explained as the images showed the development of different alien races. The Zephyrians received longevity and wisdom. The Nexari were granted immortality through crystalline integration. The Etherians learned to manipulate energy itself. The Synthri merged with their technology to become something new. Dr. Blake spoke up, his scientific mind working through the revelation. You were experimenting with different evolutionary paths. Each species represents a different aspect of what humans could become. Exactly, the Keeper said, and now, after millions of years of separate development, it is time for the great reunion. The genetic templates carried in each species contain not just human DNA, but the accumulated wisdom and abilities of your unique evolutionary journeys. Vexar stepped forward, his large black eyes reflecting the holographic displays. Our legends spoke truly then. We are all children of the same source, evolved along different paths to explore the full potential of consciousness. But why now? Captain Morrison asked. Why are we all being called together at this moment? The Keeper's expression grew serious, because the transcendent humans who created you are fading. Pure consciousness, it turns out, cannot sustain itself indefinitely without connection to physical existence. They need to return to material form, but enhanced by all the gifts they gave to their children. Lisa understood immediately. You want us to merge back together, to become one species again, but with all the abilities that each race developed. Separately, not merge in the way you might think, the Keeper corrected. The goal is unity, without loss of identity. Each species will maintain its unique perspective and abilities, but you will be connected through shared consciousness and genetic harmony. Amy Foster, who had been quiet during the explanation, suddenly spoke up. I can feel them, the transcendent ones. They're all around us, waiting. The Keeper nodded. They exist in the quantum fields that surround this station. They have been watching your development, guiding when necessary, waiting for the moment when all their children would be ready to welcome them home. Ryan Cooper looked around the vast chamber filled with representatives from hundreds of different worlds. How is this supposed to work? We're all so different now. The genetic awakening you have experienced is just the beginning, the Keeper explained. The true transformation requires a conscious choice from each species. You must decide whether to remain separate or to join in the new form of existence. Captain Morrison felt the weight of speaking for all humanity. What happens to our individual cultures, our unique ways of life? They become part of a greater tapestry, the Keeper said. Human curiosity and determination, Zephyrian wisdom and patience, Nexari stability and endurance, Etherian adaptability and energy manipulation, all preserved, all valued, all contributing to something greater than any single species could achieve alone. Lisa looked around at the alien delegates who had become her friends and colleagues. The idea of unity was appealing, but the scientist in her needed to understand the risks. What if we refuse? She asked. The Keeper's smile was gentle, but sad. Then you continue as you are, separate and alone in the vastness of space. The transcended ones will fade into nothingness, and the great experiment will end. There will be no second chance. The chamber fell silent as representatives from dozens of species considered the choice before them. They had come seeking answers about their genetic similarities and found themselves face to face with the most important decision in galactic history. Dr. Lisa Adams, standing at the crossroads between humanity's past and future, realized that everything they thought they knew about their place in the universe had been wrong. They were not explorers discovering alien life. They were children finally coming home to a family they had never known they had. The question now was whether they were ready to be part of something larger than themselves, or if they would choose to remain forever separate in the dark between the stars. The great assembly hall of the ancient station held representatives from over 300 different species. Dr. Lisa Adams sat with the human delegation, looking out at the incredible diversity of life that had gathered for this historic moment. Crystalline beings sparkled next to floating energy forms, while insectoid creatures discussed with plant-like entities that communicated through color changes. For 3 days, the species had debated the Keeper's proposal. Some were eager to join the unity, excited by the promise of shared knowledge and abilities. Others feared losing their unique identities in a merged consciousness. Captain Jake Morrison stood to address the assembly. He had been chosen to speak for humanity after long discussions with his crew. The weight of making a decision for all mankind pressed heavily on his shoulders. Representatives of the galaxy, Jake began, his voice carrying to every corner of the vast hall through translation devices that now seemed almost primitive, compared to their shared genetic understanding. We humans have always been explorers. We left our homeworld not to conquer, but to discover, to learn about ourselves and our place in the universe. He paused, looking at the faces of beings that were now revealed to be his distant family. What we discovered here changes everything we thought we knew. We came looking for alien life and found our own children, grown wise and wonderful in ways we never imagined. High Scholar Vexar rose from the Zephyrian section. The human speaks truly. For 50,000 years, my people have searched for meaning in our existence. We have found it here, in the knowledge that we are part of something greater than ourselves. A crystalline Nexari delegate pulsed with soft blue light as it communicated. Our species has achieved immortality through mineral integration, but we have been lonely immortals. The prospect of shared consciousness offers us companionship across the ages. Dr. Lisa Adams stood up, her scientific mind having worked through all the implications over the past few days. I've been studying the genetic data, and I believe I understand how this unity can work without erasing our individuality. The hall grew quiet as Lisa walked to the center platform. The genetic templates don't just contain human DNA. They contain information about how consciousness itself can be structured. We can maintain our separate species identities while sharing a deeper connection that links us all. She gestured to a holographic display that showed complex genetic and quantum patterns. Think of it like a symphony. Each species would be a different instrument, playing its own unique part, but contributing to a harmony that's more beautiful than any single instrument could create alone. The Keeper, who had been observing silently, stepped forward. Dr. Adams understands correctly. Unity does not mean uniformity. Your species would remain distinct, but connected through quantum consciousness fields that allow for shared experience and knowledge. Chief Engineer Ryan Cooper spoke up from the human section. I can already feel the connections forming. When I work with Zephyrian technology now, I don't just understand how it functions. I can feel the thought processes of the beings who designed it. It's like having access to the greatest engineering minds in the galaxy, communication specialist. Dana Wells nodded in agreement. The language barriers are disappearing, but not because we're all speaking the same words. We're beginning to share concepts directly, understanding meaning at a level deeper than language. A representative from the gaseous Etherian species floated forward, its translated voice echoing through the hall. Our people have voted. We choose unity. We have spent a long drifting alone in the void between stars. One by one, species after species announced their decision. The insectoid synthery, who had merged with their technology, voted for unity to share their hybrid existence with others. The plant-like verdant chose unity to spread their deep connection to life across the galaxy. Some species chose to remain independent, and the Keeper assured them that their decision would be respected. But the vast majority were ready to take the next step in galactic evolution. Captain Morrison looked around at his crew, then at the alien delegates who had become their friends and family. Humanity chooses unity, he announced. We've always believed that we're stronger together than apart. Today, we discover that together means something bigger than we ever dreamed. The Keeper smiled, and for the first time since they had arrived, Lisa could see tears in the ancient being's eyes. Then it is time to welcome your ancestors home. The station around them began to change. The walls became transparent, revealing the quantum fields that surrounded the ancient structure. Slowly, shapes began to appear in those fields, figures of pure energy and consciousness. The transcended humans, who had waited millions of years for this moment, died as the consciousness fields activated. Lisa felt her mind expanding. She could suddenly perceive thoughts and memories from Zephyrian scholars, feel the patient wisdom of Nexari elders, sense the boundless energy of Etherian explorers. But she was still herself, still Dr. Lisa Adams, human scientist and explorer. The returned consciousness of the ancient humans brought with them knowledge beyond imagination, technologies that could reshape matter at the molecular level, understanding of space and time that made faster-than-light travel seem primitive, wisdom gained from millions of years of pure thought. But more importantly, they brought love, the overwhelming love of parents finally reunited with children they had watched grow from afar. Amy Foster, her communication abilities now enhanced beyond anything she had imagined, served as the first bridge between the returning consciousness and the physical species. "They're so proud of us," she said, tears streaming down her face. They're proud of what we became, proud of how we grew, proud that we chose to come together instead of staying apart. Dr. Kevin Blake, his medical knowledge now connected to the healing wisdom of dozens of species, looked at his colleagues with wonder. We're not losing our humanity. We're discovering what humanity really means. Curiosity, courage, the drive to explore and understand. Those traits are now shared across the galaxy. The Keeper began to fade as the return consciousness took over the station systems. My task is complete, the ancient guardian said. The children of Earth have come home, and the galaxy will never be the same. 6 months later, Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of a ship unlike anything ever built before. The Unity was constructed using technology from every species in the Alliance, powered by Etherian energy manipulation, protected by Nexari crystal armor, guided by Zephyrian wisdom and driven by human curiosity. Dr. Lisa Adams worked in laboratories where the boundaries between biology, physics, and consciousness had dissolved. She could study life at levels that previous science had never imagined. Guided by knowledge that spanned millions of years of evolution, the Convergence Council, established at the ancient station, governed a new galactic civilization. Representatives from each species maintained their unique perspectives while working together on projects that would have been impossible for any single race to achieve. Earth received the first delegation from the Unity, and humanity learned that their children had indeed come home. The genetic code that had seemed like contamination was revealed to be the greatest gift ever given. The promise that no matter how far consciousness traveled or how it evolved, it would always find its way back to its source. Lisa often stood at the observation deck of the Unity, looking out at the stars and thinking about the journey that had brought them here. They had started as explorers searching for alien life and discovered that the universe was full of family they had never known they had. The galaxy was no longer a vast empty space dotted with isolated worlds. It was home to a connected community of consciousness, each species contributing its unique gifts to a harmony that grew more beautiful with every passing day. And at the heart of it all was the simple truth that had guided humanity from the very beginning. They were stronger together than apart, and together now meant something truly universal. The age of isolation was over. The age of unity had begun.